So we went from this little white table in the living room, and that expanded to over 60 products, a line of 60 products. We're in 4 different categories, a full-fledged business. As you said, for us, that was like everything. We went from making $8,000 to making over $250,000 because the marketplace is so competitive, super competitive, that what is your competitive advantage? You have to find that. You got to figure out what sets you apart in the marketplace. For me, being hyper focused, I knew I can do that. Some people at that time,
Yo, we gonna have a conversation, bro. We not about to be stiff about this, bro. Like, cause this is my brother, and I've seen him done. He's done some great things in the background, and I've seen it for years, though. So, I want to talk about, how my boy B went from sleeping on his cousin's couch to generating millions, bro. Millions, bro. B, welcome back to the show. Like, we didn't air the first one because I felt like I hit you. I was like, bro, we got to do this again because it was so much insight, so much growth from on both of our parts, right? Like
yeah,
life, business, family. But
yeah.
today I want to talk about how you use literally your influence to make millions, bro. Give the listeners like how did you start like being influential in your space?
Like you said, I started on my cousin's couch. Then I just saw an opportunity to talk about and educate about beards. That opportunity happened because I was going through my own transformation and trying to figure out how to improve my beard. And so saw an opportunity, a gap in the marketplace, and I started to educate, specifically at the time, Black men about their beards. Our beards, we have a certain texture, so there's a certain way we need to take care of our beards, and that it ended up growing from a hey, you know what? Let me just go ahead and just create a YouTube video. To the community began to blossom, and more people began to come into the fold, and everybody just needed more assistance, needed more help, and so I just kept on educating on YouTube. That ended up, from that point on, it went from, hey, okay, we got the information, we kind of got to understand how to take care of our beards, but what about product? You got any recommendations on products? And so at the time, I was just like, well, I knew of companies who are creating, I thought was some great products. And I was like, oh man, it's a lot of companies out here. They creating products. So I said, okay, you know what? Let me be the bridge. Let me connect these businesses with my community. And I did that. And I created a store. On this store, I was selling other companies' products and just being the middleman, if you will. And I did that for some time. And then it just got to a point to where it was time for me to graduate, and not only just graduate, but offer my community something. Let's take the customer service up to another level. So I started a company with my business partner, Joe, called Evan Alexander Grooming. That's where we started to create our own products. We were able to create the experience that we wanted to, we wanted our customers to, experience. And then that went from us, being in the living room. I was just telling my son Martell, because he was around at the time. I had a white table experimenting with different ingredients, started with an oil, and that expanded to over 60 products, a line of 60 products. We're in 4 different categories. So we went from this little white table in the living room to a full-fledged business. As you said, when at the time, Joe and I, we used to have this whiteboard in the living room that we put up, and then every month we had goals that we wanted to obtain. And one of the goals we wanted to obtain, we just wanted to make $8,000 in the business. Like that was like, for us, that was like everything. We went from making $8,000 to making over $250,000 a month. And so, yeah, and man, it seemed like, it happened so fast, and we ended up just building out from there. And at that point, we just kept going. We've kept growing. And so that's kind of, it's brought us up to this particular point where we've been 8 years strong with Evan Alexander Grooming. And got so much more to that we're going to be doing here in the coming year. So I'm super excited.
Bro, I appreciate that, but let's take a step back, bro. Let's start at that beginning because a lot of people that are going to be listening to this on the replay or if they're listening to it on Apple, Spotify, or watching on YouTube, we got to give them some tangible steps on how you started. Like from my point of view, I seen it from the beginning, since before Evan Alexander, right? I seen it to when you were up in LA on your cousin's couch, right? Like I remember those days. I remember when you said, "Hey," because to bring you guys further, we had a business together. We had
Yeah.
a business that we created in less than 45 days. We always been entrepreneurial, right? Like I got fired from my job doing sales, and Brandon was in LA on his cousin's couch. So basically, we both was jobless at the time, or you had some like little gigs in between or whatever. I said, "Hey, bro." Again, the gap in the market. I was putting people into facilities like drug and alcohol rehab facility. So I would take them from North Carolina, get them on a plane, get them booked into these rehab centers in Southern California and Texas and North Carolina and just different places. So after I got fired from that job, I said, I got to do something. But I see something because I always had a fitness background. For you guys that have been listening for a while, you guys know I was a strength and conditioning coach. And I said, hey, what I'm seeing right now in these facilities, they don't have a fitness, nutrition program. This is where we can really make an impact and generate some revenue. We did that less than 45 days. We were calling off a spreadsheet, getting meetings, getting rejected, and then we got one. Boom. All you need is one. And we got the contract. We had that for about a year. In that time period, I was doing my thing because at the moment, that's who I am. I'm a coach, right? Fitness. You know what I'm saying? That's just my gift. But B, and I'll let you take it from here, he said, boom, to his point about being there's a gap in the market. Like you said, he was on his journey, his grooming journey, and he's seen something. There wasn't an authority or influence in the space far as like black men or men of color in their grooming needs. So he said, hey, I see something here. Let me do something, but let them know, how did you start? Like, how did that start? Like, what did you use? Like, did you use your phone? Did you have some fancy equipment? How did you start making an impact on social media?
I used my phone. I used what I had. What I had was my phone. That's all I had. I had my phone and I had like I think a $5 or $10 tripod, phone pod, made for my phone. And that's it. Literally, that's it. I didn't have any fancy mics. I didn't have no fancy lighting. My lighting was horrible. The lighting I was using at the time was the bathroom light. And I propped my phone up on my $10 tripod, and I would go in and I would just talk about the things that I was living and discovering about taking care of my beard.
I want to take a pause for a second and talk about your confidence, right? You got the experience, the results, the credibility, but when it comes to putting your voice out there, fear creeps in. Who am I to do this? Does that sound familiar? That's imposter syndrome, and it's keeping you small. My coaching is about breaking through that, helping you turn your expertise into content, conversation, and coaching that builds real influence in your industry. So if you're done hiding behind titles and ready to lead with your story, head over to connectingwithcreatives.com/coaching and let's get started. I'll see you soon.
And I would just educate them about that, or questions that they may have. I would go ahead and answer those particular type of questions. But no, I didn't have anything at all. That's all I mean, literally, I have a photo where all you see is just my clothes on one side of the room, and then I'm in the middle where I just have my MacBook where I would just edit. I was using at the time iMovie, so I was just using the software that came with the MacBook, and that's where I would just use to edit my videos on, and I did that for some time. And yeah, so I really didn't, I just started with the bare minimum. I think that was probably the best thing for me, because a lot of times people can get caught up in fancy things and they need this and they need that because you're looking at other people, and you're judging yourself about based on like where they are. But a lot of times where they are is not where they started. And I think that I mean, listen, granted, if you can, get all those particular things, and that's great. But I don't think and that helps, right? I'm not gonna say it doesn't, but if it was just that easy, then people, anybody could just get a really great camera, or mic, and you'll see there'd be success. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the person and their connection with their audience. And and being able also to understand their marketplace. You got to understand the market. I think that's a big thing. I understood the market and I understood that, all right, you know what? Let me go ahead and get started right now and let me just do things. And it worked for me, you know? It worked. People connected with me. They connected. They loved how authentic it was. They just saw that it wasn't just something that I was just kind of just setting up, you know. I mean, they knew that, oh wow, you know what? This guy is really I mean, to the point to where people would fly out to LA and come and visit me. And that was you know, I was like, oh wow, people are actually like, this is like people flying out to LA to come and, you know, hear what I have to say or just to meet me and us to, you know, us to have some, talk over tea or some lunch or something like that. So yeah, it was just a bare minimum, man. I didn't really have anything when I got started.
And what I seen you do, like I said, y'all, I've been here from day one. I've seen it. He would not miss on engaging with his community and building trust with them, answering questions. Like he said, like they will fly out to see him. I've heard about those things. I've seen those things happen. I've even seen when we were hanging out, like, hey, be with the beard. That's what hey, be with the beard. And it was like seeing that in real time was like, oh, wow. Like you and I, we knew and know how powerful social media is because we were back in Periscope days when we were at the, facility or working with the facility, going live, getting reps in, right? Like becoming who we are and still becoming right now. So we had reps in, but when I seen it firsthand, I'm like, man, bro got the juice. Like, but he was so consistent on that. Like, how would you like create your content? Was it just like based on what the community was saying, like they wanted? Is that how you were building the trust with them, or?
It was a combination. It was built on what I was going through at the time
Mhm.
and what I was, figuring it out. Because again, I didn't have all the answers, but it's like I can get you from 0 to 1, and that's where I was at the time. That was my domain, and I worked that until I was able to get to 2 to 3. And then it was also questions that people were having, which helped me get to 2 to 3 and 3 to 4, helped me become more of an expert in what I'm doing because they would challenge me on things that I never thought about. I'm like, oh, I never thought about that. They have a question about it. So I'll have to go and research. I'll go and research it. And that's where I really started to get into my research bag. And I really started to understand that component of it. And I would bring that, and I started to bring the more research into my videos when I began talking. And so, yeah, man, a lot of it, how I was able to really become a lot better was because my community. So that's kind of how I was able to create content.
Yeah, don't miss that. I hope you guys, I definitely want to highlight what he said about he went from 0 to 1 and he was transparent about where he was. And if he didn't know the answer, he would go get it. Like he was the middleman, right? Like when he first started, like he was pushing other people's products. Then he was like, after doing research and development, he was like, with his son Martell, he was like, well, no, he was learning on the fly. He was like, nah, I'm not pushing that anymore. And I remember having those conversations with you
Yeah.
about like, you're like, nah, not that. And then over time, I continue to see him. In his words, he would use, I'm a scientist. And he was experimenting. And then they just got better over time. So if you guys are starting a community and if you guys want impact, just be authentic, transparent. And if you're a step ahead, like this is a master class on just being where you're at and being immersed in the process and being transparent, and you're gonna have results. So talk about the evolution of it. Like let's talk about you, like I said, research and development. Like when did you make the shift from pushing other people's products? You're just like, and then just pushing yours.
I would say at the time I had moved to Atlanta. The challenge was when you create a marketplace and you're selling other people's products. It wasn't like I was shipping off the products. I didn't have any control of that process. I didn't have, if they had an issue with the product, these things that it was out of my control. However, if they had a problem with the shipping, if they had a problem with the product, they didn't go to the brand. They came to me because I'm the one that sold them on the product, and they were looking at me as an expert to fix the problem. And that kept happening. And then I would talk to the brands. I would try to get to a point where like, hey, but it was only so much I can do because again, it's not my business. I am the middleman. I have a marketplace, but how they want to do their business is different. And so their business wasn't always entirely focused on my community because they had different products that they were focused on. So rightfully so, I understand, you're kind of just, especially if you start when you're an entrepreneur starting a business, sometimes it's just hard to be at all places at one time. So that was one of the things that I was like, oh, you know what? This is my responsibility. This is the community that I, created. And so now I need to go and create my own products that's missing. So there was another gap. I found another gap. Okay, here's another gap. Customer experience and customer service. That's what got me to create the product, create the brand Evan Alexander, and the products that we have was those particular moments.
So you seen, like you said, there was a gap there. You're like, okay, cool. Like this pushed you guys into. So you went from an affiliate essentially, right? And if you guys are in a digital space, like if you guys have a coaching community, you guys and don't have anything to push, start off just like he's talking about. He was an affiliate pushing someone else's product, but then once he got into their ingredients, their customer service, this might not be a good fit, but that gave him the knowledge and it forced him to learn and level up. And he created his own assets to push. Right. So let's talk about that transition, right? Like how you went from the affiliate and you're building your community. Like, was it scary for you guys to jump off the porch and then pushing your own products? Or did you guys have enough validation, community saying that they wanted products? Like, how did you guys make that decision to start pushing EAG?
Let me kind of track back a little bit. I would say it probably more so, it may be closer to more of drop shipping than affiliate. And I think there's a nuance to it, but because the products were on my store,
Hmm.
it's just somebody else was just shipping it out. And that's why I say
Gotcha.
that it was probably more, closer to like drop shipping. And the thing about that was when I went in at the time, people have to understand this is like in the 20 teens. Like this wasn't e-commerce had not really fully matured and maturated at that time. And so my strategy was I took the lowest amount of percentage cut from these brands. I think it was like 10 or 12% I was taking for
Word?
every sale at the time. Now, mind you, a lot of these brands, they went from selling, let's say, a couple $100 worth of beer products to selling thousands of dollars worth of beer products.
I remember you saying, let's talk about that. How much were you generating when you were
I would say overall, over that course of time, I had ended up generating like over six figures easy,
right
collectively.
pushing someone else's product?
Pushing somebody else's products. When I look back and I look at my store in terms of like me pushing other people's products, six figures. So people were making a lot. People started making a lot of money to the point to where they were like, man, okay, cool. Okay, this guy is super serious. Like he's actually, he's just not nobody just randomly reaching out to me.
Right.
This is a person who's really serious about the business. And so, I was like six figures, man, making with the drop shipping company. And so that was another thing. I'm like, man, if I can make six figures for doing this drop shipping, I can do this with my own business as well too.
Yep.
And that was like even a much more motivation to start Evan Alexander Grooming. And that's what we ended up doing. Me and my business partner Joe, we ended up starting. And then Joe came in because Joe was more of he's the brain and I'm the heart. Because for him, you always need somebody who organized. You need to organize. That's why they call it an organization. It has to be organized. You know what I mean? Like at some point, you got to get out of the fly by night mindset, build it while it's flying, and in which we still do that to this day. I think you still got to have that aspect to it, but at some point, you got to have some level of organization. Your finances have to be in order because you got taxes. You got to do taxes and Uncle Sam, your books have to be clean. You want to make sure your books are clean. And then also you want to make sure that things are flowing the way that they need to flow. Products need to be ordered. The right amount of products need to be ordered. Contracts and things need to be negotiated with different vendors and brands and things of that nature. And so, you need somebody who's able to help on that aspect. And he did that was a big part of what he does is the organization part. He took a small fire and, he was able to really help with, he loves building too. Like he's a builder, like he loves building things, me being able to understand that he's a builder and I'm a starter and I'm the heart, he's the brain, it becomes a perfect match. And so now we've been able to really grow a business and I've been able to grow within the business, even myself, because again, there were some aspects and skill sets that I just didn't have. When you are just hustling and just, you just kind of trying to get it off the ground. But once you get it off the ground and now you have to legitimize and solidify some things, you can't just do anymore. For me at the time, you got to understand, I was shipping everything off myself, so I get an order come in, here I am shipping it off myself. I remember at the time invoice was done by paper, you know, it was digital, but the way it was done digital, um, it was just a mess. There was no order, like how we keep track of everything. When I mean paper, meaning that I would write things down in terms of like how much things cost, where are the costs, everything. I was just kind of writing things down, which becomes a mess because things get lost in the sauce. And so that's where Joe comes into play, to where he's like, no, we need to have QuickBooks. We need to organize QuickBooks. We need to have it connect to the business. We need everything to be flowing. So that way, if any day, anytime we need to get audited, or we do get audited, our books are clean. And so, hiring people, he was really big on that component of it, as far as hiring. And so that way I can just focus on the education part. I can focus on the content portion of it. I can focus on the community building portion of it. And so, yeah, it just really was a great, it's been a great partnership that we've been able to have, because he brings his strengths. I have my strengths. And so we've been able to really, really build a really great business, I would say.
So let's talk about strengths, right? Like that's a good segue, because one thing, like me and B, we go back since second grade. Like that's how far we go back. So one thing B has always been good at: hyper focus. And anyone successful in life, they're hyper focused on their goals. So would you say that's one of your assets, or one of your strengths that's taken your business to the next level? And how have you grown, like you said, within the business since starting the business?
Yeah, it's a gift and a curse. And the gift is that you do need to be hyper focused, especially when you're starting to build something. You need to have your blockers on, and that's what you need to focus on, because there's so many. I mean, right now, especially right now, it's just so many things that's pulling at your attention. They want your attention. And you start off the day with 100% of attention, and depending on if you may be watching the news, well, that watching your gas go from full to empty. And that's what happens, when you can put on your blockers, then you can keep majority of your attention, energy. That's all you have. And you become hyper focused on that. And you become so obsessed with that, because you have to be obsessed with that. That's how you're going to able to get something that go from an idea or a concept into pushing it into the marketplace. You have to, because the marketplace is so competitive, super competitive, that what is your competitive advantage? You have to find that, especially if you don't have the resources, like if you don't have the money, or, you may not have the know-how as far as the business yet. You got to figure out what sets you apart in the marketplace. For me, being hyper focused, I knew I can do that. Some people at that time, they were not in a place to be hyper focused. So I'm able to push myself into the marketplace just by doing that. I mean, Mr. Beast did the same thing. If you ever hear interviews with Mr. Beast, he'd tell you, I became obsessed. I became hyper focused on becoming, the YouTube, the mammoth that he's become. Every person who's had a level of success, I think that there's a level of obsession that they have. But the curse of it is that sometimes you can just become so obsessed that you forget about the bigger picture. You can't even think about other angles. And so that's why I think it's important to have somebody who can have a zoom out, a vision, or a zoom out perspective, because then now that can offer a level of balance that you probably didn't have. Like, oh man, you know what? I didn't see that. Like I have a consultant that I work with, right? And I can be like hyper focused on this, but then he's looking at it like, okay, no, this is what I'm seeing. I see, but he needs me to be hyper focused, because that's, how we're going to get a great products. And then he can be the lookout. Like, oh, I see something's coming over here over the mountaintop. Like, but you need that. But I think if you understand that part about yourself, and you know yourself enough to know that, hey, this is my strength, but this also could be my blind spot. So I need somebody hey, I need you at my 6. I need somebody to watch my 6. And if you know that about yourself, and you can bring people in your space, and you can partner with people in that way, that's definitely going to be a way to to manage through that process.
Don't miss that. Don't miss what he just said. He said coaches have coaches essentially. Leaders have other leaders to watch their six, watch their size, their peripheral vision. And it helps them one keep them accountable and also helps them scale and learn and mentor. Is huge. So B, with that being said, I know like we go back to the mad scientist, but still does a lot of research on thumbnails, a lot of research on what his competitors are doing, a lot of research on the products that are out there. What he like he said, he's seen and we've had some private conversations of what's now and what's coming and the things that they're doing. But how much on let's just say on an annual basis do you invest in your continuing education or coaching consultation?
Oh, how much like dollar wise or
Yeah, you can throw a number out there if you want. If not, but how much percentage do you invest into yourself?
I would say investing in myself, man. 80, 85, 90%.
Easy.
That I would say that is you have to. I think that's the part where you take what you make and you put it right back into the system. And that's what you want to do. You want to constantly take what you make, put it back into the system, put it back into the system. That's investing in yourself. If you need to get a coach, somebody who can take you to the next level, is that you have to continue to improve yourself, but you need someone who's going to help you improve. So no matter if for our business, if we brought in a business consultant to help us improve some processes or just the way that we run our business, to even right now, I have consultants that I've hired and to help me in on the creative side, because now I just got to take it to the next level. So I need somebody there who can help me in that aspect. Even for me, just buying into different programs, like I buy into different people's programs and things that they have going on, so I can learn from them. And yeah, it's a huge thing that I do every single day. Like I'm always constantly figuring out how to get better at something. How to improve on whether it's a script that I need to improve on, ideation maybe I need to improve on, whatever the case may be, man. That's going to be something that nonstop. I was just watching a Mr. Beast video where he was talking about how he has 5 people to help him with ideas, and they all have different personalities, but it's the same thing for me. Like I need to find some people, and I have somebody now, that helps me with ideas, that helps me like even think beyond my own thinking, like to help me to be like, oh wow, that's how you're able to break ceilings. That's how you're able to have what they call a breakthrough. You have a breakthrough because, in my opinion, I think when you have somebody who is thinking differently about it, they're able to see some things that you just can't see. That's how you're able to have those breakthroughs. Those are aha moments. Oh man, wow. Now this just takes you to the next level. Like, okay, I wasn't even thinking about it like that. Or maybe you just thought you're not pushing yourself hard enough. You got limitations. You put these limitations on yourself, and you may not even recognize the limitations. Or you may not think that you might be so comfortable just giving a half effort that half effort becomes so normal that you think that is giving the full effort. It's like, no, like you're not going hard enough. You want to be elite. You want to be at the top of whatever you're doing, whatever space that you're in. If you want to be the best at that, or you just want to be better than you were, a month ago, then you need somebody there to kind of hold that mirror and give you that feedback, like you said, so you can be hold you accountable on what's where you are, truly where you are.
Yeah, community is huge, man. Sports. If you guys are sports fans, B and I, we grew up playing sports literally our whole lives. And like you saying, accountability was huge. Like if you want to get better, he's talking about Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast hires people just to be around him for ideas. You're talking about Jay-Z, an artist. He had people in the studio sessions to bounce ideas off of, right? Just think about that. Success leaves clues. So if you guys want to level up, you guys need to be in the rooms. You got to pay to be in rooms. If it's free rooms, you're with your time, with your money, with what your attention, you need to be in these rooms. God has made us to be in community. He didn't make us to be isolated, right? So and I want to end with this, like talking about the how you guys are scaling now. Now, you and I we always when we connect, we're talking business, we're talking family, we're talking marketing and stuff like that because we've seen it from different lenses. But now B is in a space, and I've been saying it for years. I'm like, okay, bro. Like, so I personally paid $20,000 to be in a mastermind, to be coached, like B is saying, because I know it's impactful. And within that, I implemented, gave some of my clients that I'm working with one on one, some gain, and they're getting results. But let's talk about now. You're the authority. You're a pioneer, really, though. If you really want to be technical, like when nobody talking about beards and men of color like 8, 10 years ago. They weren't. So you became the authority, influence. You built a community. You listened to them, gave them feedback. You gave them product that was impactful to them. So now you're in a space. Now you're in a consultative space yourself, and you're offering different access services, and you're helping men on their journey. Like, what's that been like for you? Uh, Talk a little bit about that because I think that's impactful. I don't think you could have started like that out the gate without having the proof.
Again, it's like, how do we constantly evolve? So I had some issues with my hair some years ago. I ended up becoming a trichologist because, again, I kind of got deep into the research and figuring out. I was just trying to figure out, again, how do I get myself out of the situation? How do I heal myself? How do I like fix my problem? And I ended up becoming a trichologist and paid, educated myself, went through that process, got certified. And then I started, now, and then I got to a point where I was doing consultations, but I wasn't really leaning into the consultations. I was kind of just doing it, and I was charging very minimum, right? Really, I was just really undercutting myself. But again, I wasn't really going in on it. And then, even you and I, we had a conversation. You was like, man, you could be charging a whole lot more. And again, when we talk about the ceilings, I had a ceiling. I couldn't see it. I couldn't wrap my mind around okay, well, I used to work for Verizon, and my manager at the time would always say, never sell from your pockets because it would limit you. Never sell from your pockets because you might think, oh, okay, I only got $100 in there. I wouldn't, no, you don't know what this person has, what they would do. You don't know anything of that nature. Right. And so for me, I was like, man, do you think somebody gonna really pay for that X amount? I was just trying to figure out how would like, it was just too much. It was just like, I couldn't get beyond that. But anyways, long story short, we had that conversation. And then, we kind of we was doing our thing. And then, a few months ago, I started getting back into the consultation. I was like, okay, well, let me go ahead and get a consultation. And I went from, a 3-figure consultation to a 5-figure, a 4-figure consultation. And that took me from going from a 4-figure, like me just going from charging a couple $100 to now charging a couple $1,000 for my consultation. So, and man, in less than 90 days, I was able to get to $70,000. Again, and in my mind, I'm like, damn, I could have done this. I could have did this a long time ago. But again, I had these limitations. And so, but then then I got a consultant as well. And we were working together, and then we kind of put the plan together in terms of how to do it. And so it was like that Drake, here goes nothing. You know what I mean? Here goes nothing. Let's see what's going to happen. And I did it. And through that process, I've been learning on a plan. And so I got my clients. They pay me several $1,000s to consult with them for their hair. And we go through a 12-month process, and I help them through that particular process. But again, I got to that particular point by way of helping myself first, putting the proof down, showing that this is what I could do, and me proving and sharing my story online, which that's what I did, really help other people to say, hey, man, if you can help yourself, you can help me. And that's what happened. I put my story out there, and a lot of times when I was doing when I do my consultations, I always ask the person, like, how did you find me? And they would tell it, hey man, I saw your video when you was talking about your experience with your hair, and I saw you, and they relate to me. So they're like, man, I went through the same thing. And because they relate to me, they're like, okay, cool. You know what? Maybe you can help me out. and I kind of take them through that particular process to help them out. But yeah, and I would say, man, that's to kind of give you my whole little story in terms of even, even you can still have, you can have those, when you have those breakthroughs, what can really happen when you have those breakthroughs, and you can get on the other side, and you can get beyond, where you are.
Let me like break it down to you guys. Basically, what he's saying, if you guys didn't pick it up, people are paying, he's taking them from pain to a transformation. And he went from pain himself, to working on himself and got results for himself. Then he said, built up the confidence and said, okay, cool. Like I can help other people. That's his recipe. That's what B does, right? Any successful person like being influential in the space, they either got results for themselves or for others. B has done it. That's his formula. So if you're listening to this, if you want to get wealthy or make an impact, you have to be able to give someone a transformation. B is giving people transformations, like tangible transformations. And everybody transformation, they have their journey. It's not going to be the same as someone else, but what B does is he executes. So hyper focus and he executes. So that's what sets him apart. So if you're looking to take your journey or on the road of your journey, if you're trying to make an impact, you have to do those things. You have to focus, you have to get a skill set, and you have to be able to give yourself a transformation or someone else a transformation. And then ask, right? And I challenge B on that. And I'm like, so I can always see, I'm like, from my viewpoint, I'm like, nah, bro, that's a play. That's a bigger play than that. I could see that. Like, and so that's my little tangent. But man, like hopefully I know that you guys got a lot from this episode. I don't want to take too much of B's time. He has a family, he has a business. I appreciate your time, brother. But where can people, are you still accepting people for the consultation? Are you going to open it back up or?
Yeah, no, great question. So I'll be opening it back up here in the next week. I don't take too many consultations. I only take a limited amount, and because when I'm focused on someone, I'm really really focused on that particular individual. And so I don't want to take too many people. So I always tell people, hey, sign up because, I will be closing shop for a while. And then, down the road. And when you're dealing with hair, you're dealing with hair loss. Hair loss doesn't wait for me to, open up. You're going to still be losing hair. So if you are the one who find yourself where you've been losing hair or you are losing hair, then yeah, you can email me at support at evanalexandergrooming.com, support at evanalexandergrooming.com. Or you can find me on all socials. You can find me on YouTube at Black Men's Beard, or you can find me on different social media platforms, of course, Evan Alexander Grooming or Black Men's Beard, one of the two. And you can get in contact with us, whether it's a DM or email, or whatever the case, whatever you feel most comfortable with. But that's the best way I would say to get in contact with me.
I'll put it in the description, show notes and stuff like that. My brother, I appreciate your time. If you guys found that this was impactful, you might have to listen to it twice to pick up the gems that were put down. So much game. I appreciate you, bro.
Likewise. Thank you. I appreciate that, big dog.